Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Johan back again. I'm not gonna lie, I'm hella tired, but I'm gonna power through because today we're gonna be talking about my favorite era of music. In my opinion, the best era of music, the 90s, and specifically my 10 favorite albums from that era. Before we get started, I just want to note that I'm not going to be talking about The Miseducation, Jeff Buckley's Grace, or Foo Fighters' There's Nothing Left to Lose, just because even though they're all from the 90s, I talk about those albums way too much in previous videos. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get right to it. A lot of you guys gave me shit last time for wearing a Backstreet Boys shirt and not mentioning any one of their songs. So today on this list at the number 10 spot, we got Backstreet Boys and their banger of an album, Millennium. Backstreet Boys, they're the greatest fucking boy band of all time. For those who don't know, this is the album with I Want It That Way on it, but why I think this album is great is because of the other songs supporting that smash hit. Larger Than Life is possibly the best song that they could have picked to start off the album. You know, the song is kick-ass, it's fun. The music video is dope. Like, it's pretty much better than anything that Star Wars has put out recently. Other songs like It's Gotta Be You, Don't Want You Back have like an equal amount of spunk that keeps the album fun. And then on the flip side, you got Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely, which adds this melancholy to balance the album out as well. What I want to point out the most is the very last song, or at least one of the last songs on the album, is possibly the most underrated Backstreet Boys song ever, and that is No One Else Comes Close. Man, my guy Agent McLean, he doesn't get enough respect. He's completely underrated. He's, in my opinion, one of the greatest boy band vocalists that have ever existed, and that is on full display on No One Else Comes Close. Like, it's just the perfect R&B slow jam. Yeah, man, I love the Backstreet Boys. I love Millennium. This album is goated. I don't know what else to say. Like, that's pretty much it. I know I've talked about this album quite a bit as well, but honestly, it wouldn't be a list of mine if the Foo Fighters don't get mentioned at least once. So yeah, here at our number 9 spot, we got the Foo Fighters and their second album, The Color and the Shape. Like I said in previous videos, I'm sure a lot of people think that this album is the Foo Fighters' best. Though it's not personally my favorite, it's definitely in my top 3 for sure. You know, this album has Monkey Wrench, Hey Johnny Park, My Poor Brain, My Hero, and of course Everlong as well. The album was also produced by Gil Norton, who is famous for producing a lot of the Pixies records. So The Color and the Shape definitely has that bite and that dirt to it that Gil Norton and the Pixies are known for. So if you like that, this album is definitely for you. Yeah, usually when people think of quintessential 90s alt-rock music, it's this album that first comes to mind. And honestly, there's no reason why it shouldn't be. It's a great album. It's a solid 10 out of 10. To most people, including myself, even though it's not my favorite. But yeah, the Foo Fighters' Color and the Shape, it's simply great, and that's why it deserves to be talked about on this list. Even though Lauryn Hill isn't on this list, she's still going to be on this list. For me, she's in my top 3 of hip-hop artists, so naturally I'm just going to talk about the other album that she's on, you know? Her, Wyclef, and Pras are such an eclectic yet focused trio on this album. Their brand of hip-hop that they cultivated here, which to me is a good blend of hip-hop and R&B and reggae. It's super easy to listen to, it's super enjoyable, but at no point does it sacrifice any of the eloquence in both lyrics and production. And speaking of production, all the beats are just super diverse on here. I feel like my one critique with 90s hip hop is that a lot of the same snares and kick samples and just samples in general are used for a lot of songs on one album, which could get dull, at least to me. And yeah, the Fugees, they don't do that here. They avoid that and they keep it fresh and they keep it interesting. Obviously, the score is most notable for their hits like Fuji La, Ready or Not, and of course their rendition of Killing Me Softly, which was first sung by Lori Lieberman and then Roberta Flack. But let's be honest, I think the Fugees have the best rendition. Yeah, man, the score is both flawless in premise and in execution. And to me, even though I love The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill a lot more because that's one of my favorite albums, that doesn't mean that the score is nothing less short of phenomenal. And it deserves to be on this list for sure. Coming up next at our lucky number 7 spot, we got Buena Vista Social Club and their self-titled album. I'd say that I'm at my most at ease when I'm listening to this album, and not in like a overtly relaxed, lazy way, but in a way where I could just simply glide through my day and the daily routine that comes with it. It's definitely a commuter album, you know, for when you're on the go, but I also feel like that you could definitely bump this at home as well. You know, like for instance, while you're hosting, while you're trying to wind down after a long day, or even while you're cooking. Like I personally love cooking to this album. And I'm saying this because the music here is just super lively, but by no means tiring. And I don't know how exactly they recorded all this, but I feel like, or my hunch would be that they recorded all the musicians on the floor all at once, just because I feel like all the instruments feel and sound so close in proximity to one another, as if, like, it feels as if you're in the room with them recording the album, or you're just simply watching them live somewhere. Yeah, it's such a warm, wholesome, lovely album, and it's definitely my favorite album that's not in English to come out of the 90s. You're probably thinking, why the fuck is OK Computer not on here, but the Benz is? By no means am I saying that the Benz is better than OK Computer, because that's just an incorrect statement. But for me, the Benz is just the more listenable album, because it's just the easier listen between the two. You know, Radiohead basically took what they did on their first record, Pablo Honey, and just did it 100 times better. Like, the songs are still simple, enjoyable, and straightforward, but just 100 times better. Like I said, High and Dry, Just, My Iron Lung, they're all fantastic songs. But of course, the golden egg for me is Fake Plastic Trees, because that's just top 3 Radiohead songs for me. To me, the Benz is a solid body of work. Like, I'm not personally blown away by anything that's going on here, but not all Radiohead albums, or just not all albums in general, need to be that mind-blowing, society-altering type of magnum opus album. You know, sometimes just a body of work that's clean, straightforward, and has good songs is more than enough, and I think the Benz fits that description perfectly. Obviously, the Benz is not my favorite Radiohead record, and by no means, like I said earlier, is it better than OK Computer, but at least for me right now and where I'm at in life, I think this is the appropriate place to put it on this list. Halfway through my list, we have what is probably the most iconic album to come out of the 90s. And I feel like if I make a list about the 90s, there's no way I cannot talk about this album. I will say though, Facelift by Alice in Chains was close to taking the spot for me, but hey man, it's fucking Nevermind. Of course, we all know that Nevermind is synonymous with grunge, as is Nirvana. And though Nevermind isn't the first album to be, you know, to project grunge into the masses and to be loved by the masses, it's certainly the album that cemented the 90s as the grunge era, or grunge / gangster rap, but we're talking about grunge right now. You know, Kurt Cobain, Chris Novoselic, Dave Grohl, and of course Butch Vig on production, they're all at their best here. You know, lyrically, sonically, musically, they're all just at their best pretty much. Even for myself as a drummer, when I heard this album for the first time, I was like, these are the best sounding drums ever. And I still feel that way to this day. And you know, even other aspects of the music, like whether it's the guitar riffs, the bass lines, just the songwriting, all of it is so Beatles-esque. I know that's a term that people like to throw around a lot, especially when they're talking about Nirvana and Nevermind, just because at the time, at least, people like to compare both Nirvana and Nevermind to the Beatles and their albums, but it's just hard not to. You know, all the songs here are bulletproof and annoyingly catchy, all of which to disguise the heavy subject matter that's being sung about here. Yeah, man, like I said earlier, there's no way I can make a list about the 90s without talking about this album. So yeah, Nirvana's Nevermind at my number 5 spot, where it rightfully belongs. This guy has only 3 albums to his name, and this album so happens to be the one from the 90s, so that's why it's here. I love all 3 of D'Angelo's albums, and I'm not placing this album here just to stay on theme for this video, but I genuinely love Brown Sugar the most out of the 3. Not only did D'Angelo sing and write all the songs on here, but he produced them as well, you know, alongside Bob Power, Raphael Sadiq, and Ali Shaheed Muhammad from A Tribe Called Quest, which is like the most elite group of producers, might I add. Both Brown Sugar and my number 1 pick are the types of albums where all the songs seamlessly blend together as if they're just one long cohesive song, which definitely runs the risk of being boring. I acknowledge that, but definitely not with Brown Sugar. That's not the case. D'Angelo's singing, his songwriting, his keyboard playing all make for such a smooth, sweet, earthy, and relaxed experience. I feel like I'm describing a cologne. But yeah, man, D'Angelo's Brown Sugar, it's my favorite among the 3, like I said, and it was made in the 90s, and that's why it's here. So yeah, it all works out. Holding the bronze medal today is Deftones and their sophomore album, Around the Fur, which in my opinion is one of the greatest sophomore records of all time, bar none. But then again, so is Nevermind. So Deftones are one of my favorite metal bands of all time. They might be my favorite metal band of all time. And though their 2010 record Diamond Eyes is my favorite among theirs, Around the Fur is not that far behind. Like I said in a previous video, Abe Cunningham is one of my favorite metal drummers, and a lot of his best work is on this album, most notably My Own Summer, Rickets, and of course the title track Around the Fur. I'd also say that a lot of Steph's best guitar work is also on here, Mascara and of course Be Quiet and Drive, all of which, you know, accumulate to make the signature Deftones sound that they would go on to master later down the road. And by sound I mean like just that nice rhythmic blend of shoegaze, alt rock, and metal. If their next album, White Pony, was also made in the 90s, maybe it would have taken the spot on this list, but as it stands, Around the Fur is my second favorite Deftones album, and it's the best one to come out of the 90s. So yeah, that's why it's in third place on this list. And finally, at my number one spot, we got My Bloody Valentine, MBV, and their spectacle of an album, Loveless. The one word I would use to describe Loveless would be absolute. For context, you know, Loveless did what it did for shoegaze the same way that Nevermind did for grunge, as in it innovated and cemented the genre for both cult following audiences and mainstream audiences. Like as a whole, I'd say Loveless is like the godfather of shoegaze albums. A, because it pioneered the sound so much so that you could hear a lot of the influences of it heard today. And B, honestly, B, because I'm just using Godfather because The Godfather is, in my opinion, the greatest movie of all time. Loveless is the godfather of shoegaze music and 90s alternative rock albums things. And then going back to what I was saying about pioneering a sound, every color and sonic texture could be heard on this album. Better yet, everything could be felt. Obviously, the main focus of this album and just MBV sound in general are the vocals and the guitars, both of which are hauntingly beautiful, free-flowing, and celestial, and yet there's still this earth and humanity to it. Loveless is basically a big pot of sound engineering soup, and I fucking love soup. Shoegaze as a whole, and I'd argue all of alt rock and indie rock, owe everything to MBV in this album, so much so that, like I said earlier, you could hear a lot of the sonic influences and just musical influences in general heard in the bands and artists that are coming out today, myself included. Yeah, man, because I love all the songs on this album equally, I wholeheartedly believe that this album is the perfect listening experience and therefore my favorite record to come out of the 90s. So yeah, there it is, my number one pick. My Bloody Valentine and their album Loveless. There we go, guys. Another one for the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And yo, let me know what your favorite albums are from the 90s, from the 80s, 2000s, whatever era you want. You tell me. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and I'll see you soon. Peace.